for those who don't understand that when I tell you I love you, it doesn't mean I want to have sex with you. It is because my heart is expansive and fuck, I love you as a human being. Look at you. You're radiant and you're kind and you make me feel good. And then people will say, why do you spend so much time with him or with her? Is it because they make me feel good? My heart says yes. My body says yes. My nervous system says thank you.
Hello, amazing Sweet Vera community. This is your host, Amber, back with another episode of the Heart Leader podcast. And today I am joined by Pauline Nguyen. She is here all the way from Australia. We have had the honor of having her on our podcast once before, and now she is here live and in person. So we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about all the phenomenal accolades this lady has, because you can read all about her on her website and in her bio that we'll make sure that we have here. We have only a short time with her on our podcast, so we want to talk to her so that you can hear from her. So, Pauline, we're going to have an anti-ordinary chat.
Awesome.
Which is...
The ordinary chats are so boring.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's my joy to be here.
Oh, it's every time we get time together, it is out of this universe. Like, I can't even stay grounded. It's beyond anything that I get to experience on a regular basis. So the fact that we get to share that with our community is a gift and a blessing. So I'm grateful.
As am I. Thank you, Amber.
We are talking about giving and receiving through the month of December. And we started talking about that a little bit in our time together yesterday. Yeah. And what that means. And we don't have to focus our whole time on that because there's so many different topics.
This is giving and receiving.
Yeah.
This is giving and receiving. This is giving and receiving.
Yeah. And we hear so often all of these different, if you want to call them sayings in our cultures about how it's better to give than to receive. Or that in order to be a good, humble servant, one must self-sacrifice. And I want to get your take on these things.
I'm having a giggle.
I know.
I call them rules, bullshit rules.
Yes. Why do you think we have those, number one? Like, where did they even come from?
Oh, well, a lot of it was passed down to us, wasn't it? Because in, I guess, speaking from direct experience, coming from the Vietnamese culture, where that sense of, it's not even altruism, it's that sense of self-sacrifice. It's that sense of righteousness. You know, we're all kind, but we're not. We're human. We're human, and therefore we can be kind, we can be unkind, we can be angry, we can be relaxed. We are all of it. And so to wrap everything around this false sense of, you know, love and light and forever goodness is, well, that's not really human. And so it's that concept that says to give and to always be charitable. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't really follow the law of complementary opposites, the law of being human, really, you know. And so coming from the culture that I came from, it was that sense of always be kind and always be giving. It's like, yeah, but to understand also that to receive is also the giving. To also showing compassion to self. You know, I too deserve a nice piece of cake. I too deserve a nice piece of whatever it is that you're serving because I spent the time cooking it, you know, versus being this self-sacrificing, this enduring thing that a lot of my culture embrace so much. Yeah, I have a restaurant, Red Lantern. It's the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant in the world, and a lot of my friends come to the restaurant, and they don't tell me that they visited my restaurant until months later in conversation. Like, why didn't you tell me? You know, it's like, oh, because we didn't want you, because, you know, we couldn't, for fear of, you know, receiving all these freebies or receiving too much hospitality. It's like, whoa. This isn't about you. This is about me and the joy that it gives to me, the joy that I experience having you in my restaurant and being able to look after you, that gives me joy. And they don't think about that part. That's why we do what we do. That's why we're in hospitality, because of that joy for giving and the receiving of that experience of seeing everyone happy.
Yeah. And I think that part is missed a lot too. It's when you give something, you get something. Yeah. Whether you acknowledge that or not, it's always both, right? And so I think we forget that. But at the same time, if you're constantly giving more than you have to give, you're depleting yourself so much that eventually you're going to have nothing left. And with the holidays and what we have going on at the end of the year, there are so many different holiday traditions. We see it happen. Like, that's why depression spikes. People are just burnt out already from a whole year's worth of working too hard. Then there are all these expectations around what we need to give. Yeah. And then we give more than we have, and we shut off the receiving, or at least the awareness of receiving back has been what I've found. And then people are just so burnt out that they start off the next cycle with nothing left in the gas tank.
Yeah. There's not only the burnout. I think when we're talking about physical burnout, I'm going to park that to one side. And there's also the burnout that the season of Christmas brings. When I talk about physical burnout in terms of, working all year or giving so much, I don't believe burnout happens when you are doing something that is truly part of your essence, that is truly heart-led, that is truly what you are all about. When you're in that space, there is no burnout. Burnout is when there is resistance. Burnout happens when you're doing something that is not part of your core. That's why you're burnt out, because you're living up to someone else's rules, when you're living someone else's dreams, because it's the law. The law is that when you are doing what you love, when you are in spirit and inspired, you get tapped into this unbridled energy and simply don't burn out. So for those who do experience burnout, it's a wonderful barometer to saying, I'm not living my truth. Because if I'm living my truth, there is no effort. There is no effort. So I'm going to park that to one side because I teach a whole lot of discourses on that. And then the other side of it is the burnout that the season of Christmas. In my family, I stopped doing Christmas a long time ago. There was so much incongruence and untruths with the Christmases that I experienced. Growing up, I didn't experience Christmas because I had a very violent upbringing. But as a mother, I had to follow the traditional Christmas presents and sit around the Christmas tree with the in-laws and, give. And there was something inside of me that said, there's something not right about this. Watching everyone stress about keeping up with the Joneses, what other piece of plastic shall we give each other this Christmas? What trends? And then I looked at my children and my children are like, Mum, everyone else has got this widget or everyone else has got this piece of plastic doll. And there was the pressure to buy that for my children because everyone else was doing it and, having to maintain the Christmas traditions that did not resonate with me. It no longer resonated with me. And so I had to break away from that. And for me, the giving and receiving is about time, is about being present. It's about sharing food and breaking bread and much more about experiences than, this giving of meaningless gifts. And you see so many people, it's like, yeah, now I got to buy this gift because they're going to spend that much money and I need to spend. And it's now becomes about appearances, which is the external versus about it being internal now. And the giving of contribution is very much a human need for a lot of people. And so giving is also receiving. But this distinction there is it must come from the heart. It must be, I call it an internal art. The art of always checking into your heart versus the external arts of what would people think. And so I truly believe that our heart is the barometer for the future. Our heart is the barometer for our future. And so as with everything, it's a cultivation of a practice. And so for me, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And so for me, it's a half-hour check-in or a 1 hour check-in on the hour, check-in to my heart. My heart. Should I go into collaboration with this person and, et cetera, et cetera? Tuning into the heart. Heart says, hell yeah. Heart expansion. My heart, should I be spending $300 on this item that will only probably make them happy for 5 minutes at Christmas time around the tree? Heart contracts. Body says, no, don't go there, But it must come from the internal art of the heart rather than the external of what would people think. It's a practice.
It is indeed. And that's like giving to yourself.
Yeah.
And that fills that tank so that you can give to others. And it matters so much. Yeah. And I feel like if we did that every day instead of just at the end of the year, then suddenly every day is whatever holiday we celebrate, instead of it being just once on a specific date.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because gift giving is not one of my values, but the giving of time, the giving of shared experiences, that's big for me. And to have you say that has just made me shift gears a little bit more, in that it's inspired me to make more of an effort in that respect, because why shouldn't we amplify that?
Yes. And we do that so much. Like Austin and I were talking even on the way to receive you this morning. It's people are sending out holiday cards earlier and earlier. Like if they celebrate Christmas, we're getting them before Thanksgiving has even arrived.
Yes.
And he's like, why is that happening? Why are people putting up holiday lights before, like as soon as our Halloween is over, then Christmas lights go up? And he's wondering why is that happening? I don't understand that. And I'm like, well, I actually can connect with why that's happening. If the only time that you're connecting with your joy and your happiness is saved and reserved for one season per year, then you desire to connect with that as early as you can.
Yeah.
But if you were celebrating it every day, then you're not waiting for the end of the year to happen. It's like, it's just another day, because every day is Christmas, or every day is Kwanzaa, or every day is Thanksgiving, or every day is Easter, or every day is whatever makes you the happiest.
Yes.
And why wouldn't you desire to live in that state of connected bliss? Not that you're not going to have your bad days. I mean, for me, growing up, even when we got together as a family for Christmas, there was always one blow up. We couldn't all be together and
in
not
my
have
family,
something.
there's a blow up every time we get together.
Yeah, I mean, but that's actually part of what makes it so amazing, right? To know that we love each other so much that even when we argue, it doesn't matter, because we can get through it together.
But at the end of the day, how wonderful that there are seasons like that to remind us, because life is life, right? Life gets busy and we live so far apart, and how wonderful that there are those seasons where we get together. I think the distinction is in the tuning into your heart, that if it is really burnout, are you really overextending? Are you really keeping up with the Joneses? Is it all for show, or does it really come from the inside your internal art?
So what would you tell someone who is caught in that cycle of just burnout? Where they know that they're not living what we would call their dharma, or where they know their soul is calling them to be, but they've built a whole life around that. And so they feel trapped in it. How would someone even begin to navigate out of that space?
I think it must start with a decision. Not everyone is aware that there is another way. It's very difficult for someone, I think, well, I know, I coach a lot of them, in a position where they've built a business rather than building a life. And so to build the business, it is not spending time with family, hanging out with shitty people at work. It's not having time to go into rest, spending time in nature. This is why burnout happens, right? And, there's several different versions of rest. Emotional rest, rest in your nervous system, physical rest, spiritual rest, mental rest. And so to understand that rest is a weapon. Rest is a weapon. I speak to so many people and say, how many times do you go into deep rest in the day? They're like, well, they wouldn't. It's because guilt comes online. But isn't that interesting that you're suffering from burnout, but you don't think you deserve to rest? To rest is not, I will rest when I'm deserved. It's like, no, you are a human being. You deserve to rest. I go into deep rest definitely once a day, sometimes twice a day. I go into deep yoga nidra for 30 minutes and I come back out, or I have a quick 10-minute internal rest. And there are the somatic ways to not experience burnout. But first it must start with a decision. Do you really want this life? Do you really want to start to live your truth, or do you want to not be around for your kids because it's not really sustainable? So it always starts with a decision, because if you're earning a lot of money, you have a great reputation, you have a successful business, it's very difficult to let that stuff go, right, at the end of the day. But then I coach a lot of entrepreneurs who are now spiritual entrepreneurs, because there is this huge disease that's going around and dis-ease, and they think it's psychological pain, but it's spiritual pain, because they're not living the life their soul intended. And that's why we are here, to live the life our soul intended. So to make the decision, do I want this to continue doing it this way, or do I want to continue doing it another way? Because there are different ways to do it, right? And for me, and as well as yourself, Amber, understanding the importance of being a heart-led leader. And being a heart-led leader is not, being all this fluffy stuff. It's our heart is with us from the day that we were born to the day that we die. It is our best friend. Our heart is with us our whole lives. This is what we need to tune into. The truth of this. My heart. Do I continue with this job that's causing me so much pain? Your heart will tell you. Your heart will tell you, not your head. Stay in your head and you're dead, right? So it needs to start with a decision, and then to work your way to nurturing your nervous system again. Our nervous system starts to trust us when we nurture it. So ways to nurture your nervous system is, when a lot of people experience anxiety, overwhelm, depression, or stress, it's because they've, for want of a better term, I'll use it in my language, they've betrayed their nervous system. They've hung around toxic people. They've had toxic thoughts. They're sitting there and their nervous system is going, this is not good for me. 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 But they still sit there because it's their mum, or they still put up with it because it's their sister, or they put up with it because it's their boss, or, their terrible spouse or whatever. And so their nervous system says, I don't trust her anymore. She doesn't nurture me. She's not listening to me. And then the nervous system doesn't perform at its best. And then we experience the dis-ease and the disease. And so the nervous system and the heart work together, you see. But how often do we not listen? And when we don't listen, that's when the burnout happens. That's when the dis-ease and the disease happens.
Have you ever found that, and I ask because I've found in my practice, that individuals get so trained to being in that space, that fight or flight space, where people around them have been that toxic, if we want to use that word, but everyone is in that space, that constant fear space, that they get accustomed to that. And so the moment they get around individuals who are not in that space, who are in a much more, blended, so not full love, but not full fear, just like in a healthy emotional space.
Yeah, in homeostasis.
Yes. They almost feel uncomfortable and they don't know how to navigate around that. And so it almost becomes like, how do I stair step away from this environment where my nervous system is completely shot into a space where I can be around individuals who have a healthy emotional state? So do you have any tips that you would say, okay, how do I go from here to blending with a group over here?
Yeah.
So those little stair steps.
Yes.
Or small steps.
I think it works both ways as well. And again, it starts with a decision, understanding that people are always afraid of what they don't understand. Full stop. People are always afraid of what they don't understand. And so I always prefer to speak from direct experience because that's all I know. I'm very open with my I love yous. I'm very generous with my I love yous. And for those who don't understand that when I tell you I love you, it doesn't mean I want to have sex with you. It is because my heart is expansive and fuck, I love you as a human being. Look at you. You're radiant and you're kind and you make me feel good. And then people will say, why do you spend so much time with him or with her? Is it because they make me feel good? My heart says yes. My body says yes. My nervous system says thank you. Why wouldn't I spend time with that person? Doesn't that make more sense? But people will say, oh, what would people think?
Yeah.
If you hang out with that person too much, what would people think if you're too generous with your I love yous? People are always afraid of what they don't understand. And so it must always start with a decision. And if their decision is, she's too nice, he's too nice, therefore they're crazy, they're batshit weird, their decision is, I'd rather go and hang out with these people, so, okay. Carry on. And on the other side, I also believe that when we want to influence someone, we also have to understand what influences them. And so if it's not a if it's not a match, just everything is vibration and frequency, right? So if it's not a vibratory match, understanding that if we are vibrating too high, the ones who are not vibrating at the level of acceptance and reason and gratitude and love, they're going to find it abrasive. It's like tuning into a radio station that your nervous system says, I don't want to listen to this music. I'd prefer to listen to, death metal. This classical love music is making me feel pain. And so they're not going to tune in, and therefore they're going to vibrate out of this space. And likewise, the ones who are vibrating at this frequency, it doesn't work. And that's as easily as I can explain it. But when the decision comes in and says, you know what? Living in this anger and this guilt and this judgment and this shame is no longer working for me. I am repelling all the goodness of life. I'm not attracting. I'm not magnetizing. I'm actually aware of it, but I'm going to decide now. The decision is there. Never underestimate the power of a decision, but it must always start with the decision. And that decision comes from awareness, and that decision comes from drawing a line in the sand and going, enough. This is not working for me anymore. And then they start to take action to raise their vibration higher. So it's my question that I always ask people when they start to defend the stories they've been telling themselves about themselves and believe, or defending their victim narrative, or defending whatever it is that they need to defend, because they might have to do some work. They might have to do some work to actually move, and they might have to do some consistent work that sustains a new level of life. When they've made that decision, it's all right, now you got to do the work.
And go into the uncomfortable.
Yeah, until it's comfortable. And then life gets fun. But we can't try to fix anyone who's not ready, right?
And so it's choice by choice by choice by choice by choice until you're there.
Yeah. One question I always ask for those who do always like to defend their story because, their lens of the world is the right lens. No, your lens of the world is your lens of the world. How's it working for you? And that question always goes, oh, how's it working for you? Is it actually it's not? Okay. Want to do anything about that?
And that's truth. We all have the ability to change our lens whenever we choose.
Yes, that's the thing though. A lot of people don't realize that it is but a lens.
Mm-hmm.
But a lens. A lens of what? A lens, if you take those glasses off, try on a new pair of glasses. That's purely your lens. No, it's not. It's my reality. Exactly. It's your reality.
Yes.
It's not reality. It's certainly not my reality. But try these lenses on. How does that feel? And what about these lenses? How does that feel? And so the practice, the training, the work is try different lens on. See how it feels. And if once you get comfortable with that lens, put on another lens. See how that feels.
Yeah, it's much like going to the eye doctor and they're like flipping the little thing and it's like, which one looks better? This one or this one?
Yes.
This one or this one? You can do the same thing. It's just coming to someone like yourself or someone who has walked the journey and has all these lenses available and can say, all right, I've seen this view and this view, this view and this view.
Yeah.
And so let's just pull them all out and you can take a look and see which one looks best for you.
And we've got to open the aperture, right? So the more perspectives we can hold, the more complexity we can hold, the more free we will become because we transcend. We get to transcend any situation versus saying, I'm stuck. And with practice, everything is a cultivation of a practice. And when people do start to talk their victim narrative, I don't buy into the drama and the glamour. We don't trauma bond because heart and nervous system already says, I trust her because she doesn't go there. That's why I do all I can to keep her vital, to keep her healthy, to keep her happy and joyful and inspired and in spirit because she looks out for me. And so when someone tries to trauma bond, I don't even go there and they hate me for it. They hate me for it. Did you hear what I said? Yes. So now I'm going to go into solution mode and sanity mode. I'm not going to trauma bond. They don't like it at all. But that's self-love. That's me saying my nervous system won't go there. That's not good for me, and it is certainly not serving you. You want a trauma bond? Do it with someone else, not me. If you want to start talking sanity and solutions, we'll do this together from a higher level of mind.
I absolutely adore that for so many reasons. Healing does not often come from going backward into a trauma. I have found personally for myself. Now, that is not to discount others' experiences, but anytime I have navigated through healing or I have assisted along the journey of others, anytime you reverse, you relive.
Yeah.
Anytime you solution and desire to look forward, then you see the clarity of where you can go.
I think so many of us experience trauma there's the trauma and there's the traumatic event. The traumatic event, we all have different levels of resilience and grit and courage and all of that. So trauma for one person could be, having the crap beaten out of them throughout their childhood. Trauma for another person could have been having a fall. And so there's the trauma, but then it's the event that happened. But that's the traumatic experience. The trauma is the somatic experience, the reaction, the response every time you think about it, right? And so I absolutely agree with you. It does not help. And how many years has that been? It's all talk therapy, right? It does not help to go there and relive the traumatic event. But if we can assist with the trauma being the somatic, the mental, how the body is triggered and all that. And so if we can work on and heal the actual physical response, and then we stop the record from jumping and skipping constantly. Yes. And I absolutely agree with you. We don't need to relive it.
It's already happened.
Yep.
Why do you need to keep causing it to happen again and again and again?
Yeah.
Support your body, your energy. And that, I think, is another great thing to talk about, especially when we talk about giving and receiving. Yeah. We focus so much on the physical aspects of giving and receiving. But one of the things we so quickly bonded over was the energetics.
Yeah.
And whether we are consciously aware of it or not, we are always giving and receiving our energy.
And some people don't like to receive our energy. It's too intense for them. I can just be sitting here and someone will be saying, she's very intimidating, even though I've done no thing except sit here. Again, we're talking about vibratory match, but you know what? I'm actually not going to budge from these energetics just because of you.
Yes. And I've heard the same thing. You need to control your energy. Okay, well, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you for your observation of my energetics.
Carry on.
And so I appreciate the feedback because it informs me of where others are in their process and their flow. But it also does let us know that we're always integrating energies wherever we are, however we are exchanging with one another. We're giving and we're receiving. It's how consciously are we doing so? And are we being pure in our intention of that giving and that receiving? And that goes back to what you were saying about, okay, we can be in that awareness of we're all things. We're not just pure love, and we're not just pure hate, and we're not every medium in between. But if we're aware consciously of where we are in that moment, like if I'm having an off day, I don't need to go out and make everyone else experience that off day with me. I can choose to say, all right, I'm processing today.
Yes.
I think it's in my best interest to process within my own space. So I'm not sharing that and causing everyone around me to go through that with me.
It is that absolute awareness piece, and with that awareness, it's also to identify it. If someone's made me angry, I know that somewhere along the lines, my boundaries have been crossed.
Yes.
Because I'm angry. What will I do with this anger now? I need to be radically transparent and as skillful as possible. And skillful may always also mean I'm going to go OTT on my deliberate anger so that my children will never do it again. I've done that once. I went on a retreat. I came back and the house was unacceptable. It was extreme unacceptable. I said, all right, Pauline, you need to go OTT on this one so that they can go, what the fuck?
I will never do that again.
What is wrong with you, woman? I'm angry. And will they ever do that again? No. And then there are other times where we process and go very skillfully, my friend, you've stepped over my boundary. This is why I'm feeling this anger. And if this behavior continues, you may never see me again as a friend. And so we choose to very but that comes from an awareness piece. Or it could be, I'm continually triggered with this. They've overstepped or they've injured a part of me and it goes against a particular value. And if that value is continually triggered, I need to look at the value. I need to look at the value now and say, does this value still serve me? If it's a continual process, right? And so it's that constant awareness. And that is the not only giving and receiving to one another, but giving and receiving of self. And going, do I want to continually put my nervous system through this? Maybe it's the value that I need to look at, whether that value serves me or not anymore.
100%. Because emotions are energy.
Yeah.
They inform us.
Energy, emotion.
Yeah. And what we choose to do with that is 100% choice. Again, always comes back to decision based on choice. And if we just give up to the emotion and allow it to be an instinctual reaction, then we go back to our primal nature.
Yeah.
We don't have to be primal. There are times to be primal.
Yeah.
And they're lovely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to always be that. It's part of consciousness.
Yeah. And one thing I teach my students is it's very much, we do the semantic work, but, talk therapy alone takes too long. It doesn't always work. Always have to combine it with a somatic. Where is it in your body? How long have you been holding it there for? Where are you feeling it? Are you ready to let it go? To identify it. And then, of course, the soulmatic, the spiritual work that we do, the shamanic work that we do, the quantum work that we do to heal it so much faster than allopathic medicine can. And so with the somatic work as well, it's breath, it's qigong, it's meditation, it's grounding, it's nature work, but then also asking ourselves, am I allowing my emotions to affect my behavior? Because that's living a very 3D experience. That's where the pain is. Or am I going to be a master and have my behavior affect my emotions? And that's where be aware of it. All right, I no longer want my emotions to fuel my behaviors. My behaviors will now fuel my emotions. And that's when the choice, the decision, sovereignty comes online.
And I love that you just brought up how you blend shamanism, qigong, quantum.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have one lane.
No, I don't. Yeah, I have my own lane, but it's not. It's multiple lanes in one lane. Yeah.
Can you kind of discuss why that is? Because there's no right way. You can have one lane that really resonates with you.
Yeah.
But you have gone like, nope, there's like 100 lanes, and there might be 200 come next year, and there might be 500 come a year and a half from now. Yeah. But you have taken this wide range and weaved them together in such a strong way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can, because a friend of mine assisted me to articulate so much of it a few years ago. So I'm a polymath and I am a panpsychic. And a lot of my male coaches in the past have said, do the one thing, Pauline. There's a book, right? Do the one thing. It's like, yes, but I'm not wired for one thing because I get bored. But I also don't dabble. I master one thing and then I master another thing. And after I've mastered that thing, I master another thing. And so mastery is important for me. Why? It's a standard I set for myself a while ago. And so I believe that every next level of your life is going to demand a next level version of you. And so once I have mastered one version, the question for me is, what's the next version of you going to be, Pauline? Because the next version of you is going to also require a different skill set. It's going to require a different learning experience. And so isn't that why we're here? Isn't that why we're here on this earth? To learn new things, but I also believe that we are what we teach. And so everything that I learn, I teach it. And the more I teach it, the more I embody it. And that's how it works for me. Whatever I learn, I teach. And then once I've taught it and they'll know it, it's just another part of me that needs to stay ahead of the game. And so I learn something else and then I teach that. And so my friend David Chiem, he is the CEO of I'll call it childcare or child education franchise center called Mind Champs. And he lives in Singapore. We grew up together. And I used to beat him up in martial arts. And he is a beautiful, beautiful man. He's one of the most successful entrepreneurs living in Singapore at the moment. And I joke all the time, David, when are you going to stop winning Entrepreneur of the Year award? Can you give it to someone else already? He just comes from a really altruistic, beautiful heart. And so Mind Champs, and I'm giving him a big plug, Mind Champs, you know how in adult life, let's say the last 30, 40 years, the whole personal development movement has us started at a later age. When we understand there's a better way of being and, you've got the Tony Robbins and you've got all these people coming in. And so that evolution, David says, well, why do we have to wait until we've suffered all this suffering to finally get to a stage later on in life to say, I need to start to learn how to develop myself as a human being. So Mind Champs takes all of that and starts teaching it in childcare. And so developing these, I'll call them superhuman by the time they grow up. And so that they don't have to go through the suffering. They don't have to go through, this process of awakening and having this process happen earlier on. And so he writes a book called the three mind revolution, or the third mind revolution. And he flew to Australia to launch my book, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur. And we were talking about it, and he read my book and he said, Pauline, you have the champion mind. And I'm like, thanks. And he goes, no, it's called the champion mind. And so the third mind revolution, he's co-written it with neuroscientist Professor Snyder. And he writes that there are three minds: the creative mind, the artist mind, the academic mind, as well as the champion mind. And he said, you have the champion mind. It's actually a thing. And so okay, now I'm really interested. I thought it was just a flyaway comment, And he said, the champion mind is you do not compete with anyone else. The champion mind does not care what the competition is doing. The competition is you. The champion mind always says, how can I do better than I did last month? How can I do better than I did last year? The champion mind says, why am I going to be worried about what the others are doing? And I do this in business as well. I don't see the restaurants in the top restaurants in Sydney as Red Lantern's competitors, because we just don't bother ourselves with, we are our greatest competitors. We must make our own rules. We must run our own race, right? And so the champion mind also says, I have a physical, visceral aversion to mainstream. There is a physical aversion to mainstream. I have almost a repulsion to mainstream views, to that sense of fitting in. We do not want to fit in. Do not put me in a box. I cannot be boxed. And the list goes on. And it's not that, we win all the time, but it's officially called the champion mindset because we just don't want to run as everyone else. And so the champion mindset, to answer your question, is what else can I master? Because I'm in competition with the person that I was last month. And that's why I'm forever learning. And also it fuels me, it fuels me because we are what we teach. It's that receiving of information and then giving the information. And it's that consistent cycle of the energetics, right? Why am I going to keep on learning stuff and hoarding it? I've got to start giving it away too.
And then that allows you to create programs that are so robust that when others come in who have that desire, you can support them.
Yeah.
Or if they come in and they have any one of those lanes, you're like, okay, I have a program for that.
Yeah.
And you can support them in that way.
Yep. It also keeps life interesting. I have students all around the world and they're like, what else are you going to teach us, Pauline? What other modalities have you learned?
Yeah. And it keeps things just so fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. So
yeah, it puts a different spin on the word discipline, right? I'm incredibly disciplined. I'm not regimented. I also love the human experience and all the pleasures of that life gives. But the word discipline comes from the word disciple, which is consistent, perpetual student of life. And that's what we are. We are students of life.
Yes. And we were talking about not being put in a box before this started too, because there is such an inherent need, it seems, in our brains to categorize things. Yeah. It's the way that we understand life. But there are some things, including humans, that are so multifaceted that we cannot be put in boxes. Yeah. None of us. We're not here to be labeled. We're not here to be categorized. We're here to experience. We're here to be so many different things. And the moment we start putting things like people or love or any of that in these boxes, then we're doing a disservice because we're actually limiting ourselves and our ability to experience the person or the energy like love fully and completely. Mm. So if I were to label you and say, oh, you're just a spiritual coach, then I have limited my complete ability to experience all that you are, because you are not, like one of the little things that you offer is spiritual coaching. But you also have created this amazing chai that I get the honor of experiencing on a regular basis now.
Anti-ordinary chai for anti-ordinary people, Tiger Purr.
Yes. You have a restaurant. There's so much to you. So
yes. I just came back from Chicago, gave a big keynote as an international speaker to 200 of the top speaker bureau owners and agents around the world. It was an amazing experience. It was a lot of fun. Mastery on all levels, right? And then say, what's next? Let's make some chai.
If we walk away from this podcast with anything, it's the best way to give and receive is to stop putting ourselves in these boxes.
Yeah.
Break that down and start being open to saying, we're people and we are so multifaceted that we're never going to fit into one lane, one box, one anything.
Yeah, I think also, Amber, to speaking from direct experience, we are the outliers. Full stop. We have the champion mind. Full stop. And so mainstream, they don't get it. And it's okay if they don't get it. I stopped being everything for everyone a long time ago because my heart contracted, because my nervous system was not healthy. I stopped being something or everything for everyone a long time ago because most people don't get it. And I have this thing now where I say, it's okay if you don't get it, because I want to be for the people who do get it. I'm for the people who are abundant with their love, are abundant, are not afraid. I'm for those people. And so that alone gave me a whole lot of freedom to run my own race, to play my own game. And there are not as many of us because this is the collective consciousness is heading there, right? But it hasn't been there for a very long time. And it's fun. What do leaders do? They go first. We are meant to cause ripples. We are meant to lead. We are meant to disrupt. That's what leaders do. Leaders disrupt. Managers maintain the status quo, but the leaders lead. Lead what? Lead into the unknown. Lead into something new. And that in and of itself is a disruptive action. And we don't disrupt for disruption's sake. We disrupt the stuff that's not working, that's no longer working. And so that's what we're meant to do in this world, in this lifetime, to cause ripples, to have people question, to make people level up their mind, their heart, their spirits, their physical bodies. But that's why there are so few people who are leaders, because leaders go into the unknown. And most people are afraid of the unknown. But at the end of the day, the quality of our life and the quality of our character is directly proportional to how much uncertainty we can handle, right? And people are always afraid of what they don't understand. And that's okay. That's okay. But once they make the decision of saying, okay, I get it. What is certain in this life? Absolutely nothing except death, right? Or maybe taxes. And so it's the decision that, you know what, I think I'm going to want to live a very different life. This one's not working for me anymore. Yeah, I'm diseased, I'm diseased, I'm burnt out, my heart is not expanding. And so not everyone has that narrative, right? Because they think that they're safe, or they prefer the safety of the known. Yeah. So we're not everything for anyone, for everything for everyone. We're only for the ones who understand it, and that's okay.
Yes. And we are unfortunately running out of time, but we are going to be doing so many different things together as we head forward into the future. And that excites me so much.
Yes, there's work to be done. There's people to lead who are waiting for us to lead.
Yes. So our groups can just wait, and we will be announcing so many different things as they go into the future. But would you like to talk about one of the things that we have going on and like the remaining 3 minutes that we have?
Yes, of course. Our beautiful tiger pearl chai. You know, what are you going to do next, Pauline? I'm going to make my own chai because no one can make it as good as I can. And again, it's 2 years in the making. It's been made by the master chef at Red Lantern. It's this exquisite premium chai, which I have shamanically activated from start to finish. And you can really feel it from sip to soul. You know, how often do we question the spiritual purity of the food that we eat, what we drink, what we put into our bodies? Everything has a spiritual essence. Just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there, but absolutely, you can feel it. You can feel it. And so to have that spiritual blessing, that amplification, that acceleration of all the spiritual qualities of the ingredients of this beautiful chai is very, very special. And I'm so grateful that you and Austin are going to look after the energetics of it in the USA. That was something that came to me in a download that I had, and it's been so synergistic and so rewarding, and I feel very, very blessed and very grateful.
We do too. We will officially be the point for tiger purr.
Yes.
So energy infused and absolutely amazing from the moment
and delicious,
I tasted
and delicious.
It is so good between the taste, the smell. Yeah. You can feel it. You hold the canister, you can feel it. Yeah. So it is going to be an amazing, amazing endeavor.
I'm very proud of it because when you look at the product and how it's presented, again, the word mastery comes into mind. Yeah, mastery, energy, intention. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and delicious, and delicious.
Absolutely delicious. So we'll have a lot of information for you all for where you can find Tiger Purr, where you can find Pauline, how you can learn more about her, because she is magnificent and she does have so many different offerings that you can explore. So we'll make sure that you can learn all about that. This month, we do still have our free download, so make certain you check that out with the link below. It is our Giving and Receiving Journal. And until next time, I am your host, Amber, and I look forward to seeing you in our Sweet Vera community.